last year and see how we did there. That way you can get a better idea how we might do this
Right.
year's top 5.
And
But
I'm gonna start this because I
okay.
believe my guy is the one that we're starting with on this from number 5 last year.
Yep, number 5. So
And I'm
Casey's the
kinda
left, I'm the right. That's any of our videos you guys watch, it's always Casey left, I'm always the right.
right. So going back to David's comment here, I sorry, not this one, because we passed on wide receiver last year. I would have been fine with not. I think Lewis Cine is going to be a fantastic player in this league. I love what I see from him. I think if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to do really good things. I would have been fine with sticking and picking Jameson Williams at number 12. Could you imagine? Like, he's the guy that we're looking for. We need that deep threat that can stretch the field.
Right.
Guess what? He had 1 catch last year.
Right.
And a deep shot that stretched the field for a touchdown against the Vikings. Well, we'll forget about the last part there. But man, Jameson Williams, did he show it last year? No, but everybody knew that going into that draft, that Jameson Williams was a guy you're going to draft for the future.
Yeah. And he's a guy that we don't really know about yet. Like, obviously he was injured. We knew coming into the last season he's going to be injured for most of the season. So we got to see a little bit. We really got to see a little bit of him towards the end of the season. So he's somebody that could definitely go up on this list. Trading back in the what's going on to Evil to Hope. Trading back in the first round makes the most sense.
I would agree.
I agree. Honestly. At this point, especially when we do these mock drafts, who knows how it's really going to go. But when we do these mock drafts at pick 23, there's usually at this point right now anyways, there's like 2 or 3 that I'm liking, that I'm like, man, if we traded back just a few picks even, I'm assuming we'd probably see a little bit more than that. But yeah, I mean, I think that should be definitely a possibility. My number 5 last year was Chris Olave.
I undersold Chris Olave a lot last year.
And even number 5 is selling. That's selling low or underselling Chris Olave for sure. He was probably, in my opinion, number 2. If I was to remake top 5 from last week, I'd probably pick Chris Olave as the number 2 wide receiver from last year.
Yeah.
Bet the ranch. There's apparently some drama between Williams and the Lions, so maybe we dodged a bullet. Yeah, I mean, maybe Jameson Williams is. And then there's a player in this draft that actually reminds me a lot like Jameson Williams. I'm sure everybody knows who I'm talking about, but he's not as coveted. He's not as coveted, but I think he's going to bring definitely. I think he can maybe be as good. I don't know. Bet the ranch on Richardson. Man, pick 3. And Richardson, you'd have to hold on to him for like 2 or 3 years before you can even have really big expectations. Who knows? Maybe he comes in and plays well in his first season or something, grows pretty quickly or something like that. But I like Richardson a lot. I don't know if I'd want to trade all the way to the top 3 pick just to get him. Maybe you guys are all on it. You guys want that big swing. You guys want to go for the. It's a massive swing. I mean, you trade up probably at least 3 first-round picks. You get a guy that has the potential, has all the tools to literally be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and already is the most athletic quarterback we've ever seen come into this draft, especially when you consider his size and everything.
Yeah. So see, with me, like, we don't. Okay. We've talked a lot about quarterbacks on the show. We probably don't need to. We're talking receivers now. We can wait and talk quarterbacks later.
Yeah. We'll make our way to quarterbacks.
We always do. We always find a way to pull us back into the quarterbacks.
Some dude made a video about Jameson is going to be the best receiver in the league. Like, calm the fuck down, dude. Hasn't even proven. Yeah, we haven't seen nothing. I mean, he still played a few games, and they didn't even see enough from them either. Oh, dude, you're good, man. You're good.
It's fine. We'd have gotten there eventually anyway. It always happens.
Yeah, we're
talking receivers. Receivers catch footballs. Quarterbacks throw footballs to receivers. We have Kirk Cousins. It would have gotten there eventually.
Yeah. So it's just his late pick on him. Hey, I would take it. I want that kind of quarterback. All right, I'll come back to quarterback. We'll come back to quarterback. So number 5, Chris Olave. We undersold him here. I think he's number 2. There's no question in my mind.
I didn't even have him in my top 5, so I really undersold.
You really undersold him. You really undersold him. So number 4, it's Jahan Dotson too.
He started off hot. I mean, I think he got hurt a little bit during the season, but I think with the right quarterback back there, I think Jahan Dotson's going to be a really good receiver in this league for sure.
There's no question he's a good receiver. Good receiver. All right, there we go. I think Addison or Flowers. I 100% agree with any of those. I would love any of those players. Number 3, we had Drake London, which at this point when we made this, he was favored to be the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class, which he eventually was picked number 1 overall. I think we did a solid pick. I think, obviously he's a rookie coming in. There's not a lot in the passing game for Atlanta.
He was hampered badly by the quarterback
hampered.
position.
But at the same time, he was also the number 1. He should have been. He was the number 1 target, so he had the opportunities and stuff. And I think, obviously, I still think he's going to be a good wide receiver. But
when they get the quarterback position solidified for sure, because when they started the season with Marcus Mariota, he started off okay, and then obviously can't keep that up for a full season. Then obviously mixing in Ritter, it just, I don't know, it didn't put him in a good spot to succeed right away, unfortunately. So, but man, Drake London, he's definitely that go up and get it guy for sure.
Yep. And then our first blunder probably, but in our defense, we got Treylon Burks, number 2.
I'm not going to call it a blunder, though, because that quarterback position for that team was so bad.
And
he had a couple huge games early on in the season with Tannehill, but once Tannehill got hurt and was kind of in and out, then, you didn't see a lot from him. But I think the talent is still there. If they can find themselves a quarterback, I think he's going to be just fine.
He had flashes. He definitely shown flashes. He had shoddy quarterback play, and he was injured, but it's, obviously you should be available, but
it sounds like Titans might be in the works for quarterback, though. There was that rumor today that they were in discussions with Arizona about number 3.
They might move up to the top 3. They might have Anthony Richardson.
And they said they would even offer up Willis and a couple first rounders to get up into that first spot. So third spot. I wonder who they'd go for. I would assume they're probably leaning more Richardson. Could you imagine Anthony Richardson and Derrick Henry on the same football team?
That'd be crazy. And then Treylon Burks, assuming that he's going to meet our expectations as the number 2 from last year. Did either of you guys, I think you were talking, was this you talking about this? Did either of you guys read the article about growing so terrible. I can't even say that, between the Lions and Jameson Williams. So you were the ones that talked about that, right? Was that you that just said that?
Yeah, it was in the chat earlier.
So yeah, we heard about that. So something's going on there. That's why someone said we might have dodged a bullet there. Gary Blauster, let's talk realistic. IDL, we need to help there so bad. Actually, interior defensive line, that's who we're going to talk about next week probably. I do think that's our number 1 position of need going into.
I've been saying it all offseason,
and he's been saying this all offseason before Delvin Tomlinson even got picked up by a different team. So I don't know.
Which again, mock draft coming Wednesday, we might address that position at number 23. Just maybe.
There's some defensive interiors that I'm really liking at our pick. I don't think it's going to happen. Number 1 from last year, Garrett Wilson. We hit this one.
We knocked Treylon Burks for quarterback position wasn't solidified, yada yada, and then we're just going to totally contradict that with Garrett Wilson, considering he played with Zach Wilson and Mike White, and still put up a rookie of the year season.
Great numbers. And I had him in fantasy football, was one of my biggest steals, keeper league, so he'll be a steal for me next year. Garrett Wilson's awesome. If Aaron Rodgers ends up actually going to the Jets and we see that, I expect huge numbers out of Garrett Wilson. We know Elijah Moore got traded. Elijah Moore, who did he get traded to again?
Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
Now Cleveland, if you look at that receiver core, it's
solid with
Cooper, Moore, Peoples-Jones, like that's and David Njoku, I believe he's still there. Like that's a solid one. That's a solid 3 receiver punch there with Nick Chubb back there in the backfield. A good offensive line.
We'll see you next week too, man. I mean, obviously we're finishing this one, but yeah, definitely interior defensive lineman. It's going to be all about that. We're our live shows, unless something big news comes up, we're going to kind of continue doing these position of needs for these shows, unless something like bigger comes up. Like we have, like last week we did what Kirk Cousins denies the extension or whatever. That's worth its own show for sure. It's definitely worth. Would rather be up for drafting Bijan Robinson since he's a running back that could also catch. Rather be up. I like Robinson a lot. We have to figure out, obviously, we just re-signed Madison. Cook is still on our team. I don't expect Cook to be there next week or by next year. But man, I think Robinson is such an amazing talent. I have a feeling he's going to go top 10. I have a feeling he's going to end up going top 10. Someone's going to want him there, especially with I don't see him going past the Eagles. The Eagles are number 11, right?
No, I
11
think
or
they're
12,
10, aren't they?
or are they 10? Yeah, I don't see him going past them. I don't. All right, let's go through our top 5 for this year. So we're going from last year to this year. Number 5, starting with
Now,
Casey.
mine's a little bit odd. Like, I know he had like 200 yards last season, whatever. But just from the size and athletic ability, plus he played with Maryland and their offense wasn't very good. But just the size, the speed, he's the whole package. Just needs to get on a better football team. Like, yeah, I really did like what I saw from him though.
So
Just
when
in the
we looked at all these wide receivers, we both really like Dante Demas from just watching his tape. He's a big, pretty fast, strong, very strong hands wide receiver. I don't know what happened. His second year, he had a really good year, and then the last year, his receiving yards dropped quite a bit. But there's something about this guy, and this is Casey has him at number 5. And if we come back and do this again next year and we find out, because this is another guy too, my 6th guy, we didn't see him in there, was George Pickens. And I wish I would have put him in my top 5 last season, but he was a guy people probably had at like 8 or 9. And he went on to be maybe the number 3 wide receiver in this draft class, last year's draft class. So we might see something from Dante Demas. He might be that gem that not a lot of people know about.
Which comparing these two, Dante Demas, same weight and is an inch taller.
Comparing these two is Quentin Johnson.
Because Quentin Johnson's 6'3", Dante Demas is 6'4". So it doesn't really mean much, just a thought.
What are your guys' feelings on the most overrated and underrated wide receivers this draft? I think, all right, we'll start right now. I think the most overrated is Quentin Johnston for sure. Obviously, I have him as number 5. A lot of people have him as their number 1. I could be completely wrong. Like, I just watching his tape and stuff, he just doesn't come off as polished as some of these other guys. But obviously, he's a physical freak. That's the reason why he's rated so high from people. And he's been kind of falling down mock drafts. If we ended up with him, I probably still would be excited because I'd be like, all right, I'll trust, all these other football heads. But I would say I think Quentin Johnston is the most overrated. The most underrated. What do you think? Would you agree with that, Casey?
I would say so. Yeah. Do you think when you go to underrated, is Tank Dell rated pretty fairly? You think, or is he kind of? Because there's a lot of people that are super high on him.
Yeah.
But you see him lasting in these mock drafts till mid rounds.
I think me and you are not as in on Tank Dell as like Justin and Rap. Everybody knows those guys. If anybody doesn't, go check. I'll just do plugs for all of them. Go check out Purple and Gold for Days with Justin. Go like and subscribe to his channel. Go see Purple Pocket Podcast. Y'all know him for sure. But if you don't, go subscribe and check out their channels. And of course, Minnesota Sports Talk with Dave. Go check all their channels and subscribe as well. But no, like Justin and Rap really like Tank Dell. I think he's about where he should be based on like most people's like PFF's rankings. I think he's going to be like an early 2nd round, maybe mid 2nd round type of guy.
I feel like he's
the 1st rounder.
I feel like he's a worse Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
Would you agree with
that?
Kind of
how I feel about it.
Kind of like the same build, but not as talented.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel about it as well. And then as far as underrated goes, Tank Dell is tiny baby wide receiver. Is it
Greg? Thanks for hopping in.
Baby wide receiver. That's what I'm worried about is his size. And if I'm going to go with that size, I'm going with Zay Flowers. If I'm going for size for sure. Underrated. We're going to get more into these guys. Let's see what we have here. So underrated. I'll start with Jalen Hyatt. I think he's like most underrated, overrated. Like he was so underrated. And now it almost seems like people are pushing him so high that he might be considered kind of overrated. Like he's someone I'm hoping to get. Like I don't think I want him at 23, but if we traded back and got into the beginning of the 2nd round and we picked him there, I'd be totally cool with it. And he could even be better than what I'm even expecting because, man, when you watch his tape, he's just wide open and he's that vertical threat we exactly need across from Justin Jefferson, like we were talking about with Jameson Williams. But another thing I really like about him is he's not just a deep threat. He can catch like short passes and break them for touchdowns and stuff like that. He's not just a one-trick pony. If anything, he has like 2 tricks, which both those tricks are pretty dope in my opinion. My other underrated guy I'm going to go into him eventually here a lot is I think Jordan Addison has came way too far down. spoiler alert, he's my number one wide receiver on this list. And I think he's the best wide receiver in this draft class. And I think a lot of people have him going as like the third wide receiver or whatever now.
What do we got? I might have missed it, but what is your ranking of the amount of need at this position? Is this number one, or is this like
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Because we didn't really factor in like team need when we did our top 5. We were just kind of doing an overall.
Yeah, if we were gonna say it right now, I think the interior defensive line is number one.
Yep.
Right.
I would
number 2.
Corner and linebacker are very close. I would say
Yeah.
linebacker just because of depth issues.
Yeah.
Or corner, we don't have a ton of depth at corner because there's a lot of young guys who are unproven, but we have enough to where I feel like linebacker might trump it, but just by a little. It's tough. Like, because I would say
I'm pretty in the middle. Obviously, I think there's probably a lot more cornerback talent around our pick than line. I mean, I don't think they even have a linebacker going earlier than pick 23 right now. So chances are we would rather use our first round pick on a cornerback. But I would probably say it's pretty in between those two. And then I say wide receiver too.
I would say linebacker, corner, wide receiver are all very, very close.
Yeah. I'd put wide receiver a little bit below, but that being said,
just because we have Justin Jefferson, so you can kind of afford not to.
Yeah. And Hawkinson.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I do think a wide receiver, if we picked up a wide receiver and he ends up being pretty good, I think that would improve our team overall than any other player we could possibly pick in this draft. 100%. Because we can if we got a good wide receiver too, we'll double down on our offense, and I think that would make our offense easily top 5 in the NFL, which if we went to go pick a corner or even a defensive tackle or anyone in that position, who knows if they're even starting by week 1 and how much of an impact. Obviously, we got Lewis Seen. He got injured, but we didn't get to see much of an impact from him at all. So I do think if we were to pick a wide receiver 2 in the first round, I do think that position and that pick could make us a better team or at least help win more games, even if there's other positions that's more important for our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know
what's going on, Greg?
Let's see what happened to receivers drafted last year. Are they wasted picks? I don't think so. I think Jalen Naylor is going to have. I think they're going to give Jalen Naylor a fair shake this season to see what he's got. Honestly,
yeah. And we like Jalen Naylor. I don't know for sure. I'm not
right.
He's too late of a first round pick, or not a first round pick. Too late of a pick to just know, like, hey, this guy's going to be a wide receiver too. But he could be. He could be a diamond in a rough.
Like,
and I know
you're not looking at him as like we have Jalen Naylor, so we're fine. We don't need to worry about receiver. Like, it's still in the back of your mind. KJ, we're still not sold that KJ is a legitimate number 2 option yet. So
definitely not sold. Number 3, I like him as number 3 for sure at this point. But
and this is true too. In the interior defensive line will also improve our DBs and just a better scheme overall that actually allows.
We need it bad. We seriously need interior defensive lines. It's not even funny. We needed it before Delvin Tomlinson left. Now we need it even worse, obviously. And he was our best pass rusher, and he wasn't.
And the thing that kind of sucks about that too is letting him go is you gave up run stopping and a little bit of pass rushing as well. So now you really feel like we're really lacking in the interior defensive line because now you don't have that get after it pass rusher guy and you don't really have a big run stopper guy either. I mean, you have Tonga, but I'm not sold on Tonga.
We're not. There's just a lot we got to do, man. It's tough. What the fuck happens if JJ gets hurt? I mean, I guess it's going to be a Hawkinson show, I guess.
Yeah.
It would not be good. That's why it would be really nice if we come away with the draft with more wide receiver talent. What's going on, Justin? What's going on? We just called out your channel and everything. Again, everybody who's in here who hasn't already, I'm assuming y'all have, but go check out Purple and Gold for days. Subscribe to his channel, like all his videos, all that good stuff, just like y'all should be doing with our videos. If the Vikings could trade JJ and get this is a good pick. This is a question I've seen I haven't answered yet. If the Vikings could trade JJ and get number 1 pick, would you do it?
Not this year.
Not this year for sure.
No, absolutely not.
Not this year for sure. If Caleb Williams is there next year, God, I don't want to. I love wide receivers and I love JJ so much, but man, if we knew Caleb Williams would be a for sure thing, I would probably do it, even though I hate saying it out loud.
Well, if we were at a point where we had to blow up the rest of the team and JJ was kind of like, get me to a winner, and you kind of had to do something with him, like you were forced into it, and there was a quarterback there that is like the next guy, like if it was like a Trevor Lawrence year, you probably do think about it at the very least. But
what's going on, Charlie Hustle? Welcome in, man. Need to gain as many second and third rounds through trades. Delvin, Desarius, and Daniil. We need more picks, 100%. And we're not hearing a lot. It's funny because we're not hearing a lot about Daniil at all. Obviously, we have a cap situation. I don't know. He'll be our biggest asset in trading. Who knows what will happen with that? Zadarius Smith, I really don't know, because there was a lot of stuff going on. It was like for sure he's gone, and then all of a sudden it went completely quiet. And then Delvin Cook, we just got news today that his shoulder's looking good, his rehab's looking good. I can't imagine. We just paid Madison.
Who put that news out there about Delvin Cook's shoulder being better? Who pushed that to Ian Rappaport, trying to get him out of Minnesota? I don't know.
Yeah. So there could be. I'm expecting some trades, man, and we could be trading up and getting some more of these guys. You guys should really get Patreon set up so we can donate and show our love for content. Gary, we appreciate it so much. Hey, we're working on our 1,000 subscribers. We could probably create something like that, but otherwise we're working towards that 1,000 subscribers. Once we get that, we can do the what's that called? What's that chat thing called? What is it?
Super chat.
Yeah, super chat. We can get the super chat going.
Where streamers basically ignore your comments unless you pay for us to read them. I'm kidding. We won't do it.
No, so we're gonna work towards the 1,000 subscribers probably before we start throwing. His agent is exactly right. Before we start asking for money and stuff like that, we got work to do, man. We got work to do. We're gonna keep making this better. Once we get 1,000 subscribers, we'll start putting that out there and working more towards that kind of stuff. We also have other stuff in mind as well that will I think we're going to be coming out with an email letter and all that good stuff. You guys are just set up of email, then you get a lot more of the money. That's a good point though. That's a good point.
But then we gotta mention during the video, like, if you guys want to donate to our Venmo, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. We'll get there. Right now we're just focused on making better content and talking to you guys and building this up. We'll get there. We're not going to get too greedy yet. Not too greedy yet, but we appreciate it all so much. And once we get to 1,000 subscribers, I think we'll feel like we deserve it a little bit, a little bit more, you know. But we got some exciting stuff coming here.
Absolutely.
We got some exciting stuff coming here. I'm in your corner and we'll be the first to sign up. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's something that's going to come out somewhat soon. Is I am going to create some sort of newsletter. So that will definitely be out somewhere soon. And I'll let you all know about that. And we got some good stuff with that too. I want to give bigger giveaways on that newsletter and all that kind of good stuff. So appreciate the love for sure, Gary, and everybody else in here. It's big time for us. It's all good, man. Hey, we're in here to have fun, talk to you guys, and talk about Vikings football. That's number one. You know, as long as that stuff works out well and we're happy doing all that stuff, you know, the money and all that things will come with it. And
absolutely.
We're happy to wait on that stuff. Anyways, back to the wide receiver stuff. Where are you at with Jalen Hyatt? And we have JSN on the board here.
So I like Jalen Hyatt for a lot of the same reasons you do. He's that deep threat. He reminds me a lot of Percy Harvin. Maybe not. I mean, they didn't use him the same way that Percy was used at Florida, but yeah, I like a lot what I see from Jalen Hyatt. So I would be pumped if we could find a way to get him in like the second roundish, somewhere like that. But you want to? I mean, I know. Speaking of overrated, underrated, your guy at number 4, I believe if I'm not wrong, you think he's a touch overrated, correct?
JSN.
Yeah.
So let me shout out. Hey, Paul, what's going on, man? Welcome back in, sir. Greg, if I ever meet you guys, I'll definitely donate to your bar bill. Hey, man, I don't know if you want to do that. That thing's going to be pretty hefty if we're around. Back to JSN. It's not so much that I think he's overrated. I think could come in and be a fantastic slot receiver. I think looking at him, I think it's just the kind of player we least need on our wide receiver corp. Is a slot route running type of guy that doesn't really beat the defense deep, because that's what we really need. Though I do think there's a chance that he can be extremely special in that slot position. And at the end of the day, especially at a position like wide receiver, I don't think it matters. Overall, I don't think it really matters what kind of wide receiver you have. You just want really good ones. And I think there's a chance that JSN could be the top wide receiver in this draft based on just skill level. And he plays the slot so well that it would be a big beneficial to us, potentially.
Yeah, I agree.
What's going on, Skol for Life? Again, everybody who's in here, hashtag Skol in the comments. Just like every live show, Justin Jefferson rookie card giveaway. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. If you're watching it now, if you're watching it later, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, back to JSN. I don't know. That's where I'm at with JSN. I think he could be a really good slot receiver. He's not beating anybody deep. His 4.5 whatever 40 time was definitely a good sign for what he can do, but it was obviously really obvious that means he isn't going to be beating defenses deep very often. What's your thoughts on JSN?
I really like JSN. There was a time when people thought Justin Jefferson was just a slot guy coming to the league as well, and he turned into obviously a little more. Like, I'm not going to sit here and compare JSN to Justin Jefferson, because obviously JSN had 1 year of solid production, because obviously his last year he was hurt, but that 1 year was fantastic. What did he have, like 1,500 yards, and he broke the college record for receiving touchdowns in a season or something like that. And obviously playing with who he played with there, with the likes of Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, like that helps for sure.
And your quarterback Stroud.
Yeah, absolutely. And was Marvin Harrison Jr. on the team too? The team as well?
This past season, not the season before.
Season before he wasn't. But anyway, yeah. I'm a huge GSN guy. Like, yeah. I think he's really good.
Casey just boxed me.
What
do you mean by that, Gary? What do you mean by that? Too evil, too old. What would you guys? This is a good question. Too evil. You're coming in with some nice questions right now. What would you think if the Vikings traded one of their picks during the draft for another team's current wide receiver?
It depends on who we're trading for and what that pick is. If we're giving up a third rounder for DeAndre Hopkins, sign me
I'll do that.
Even though he's older and he's cost a lot of money, but
yeah, DeAndre Hopkins would be huge, and it's something that we don't have is a player like him. Obviously, he's not going to be that completely deep vertical guy, but he definitely can get it.
Because that was something I heard before I even started, like when I was just a cash fan, instead of being a casual podcast flash fan, is like I was watching other people say like Justin Jefferson is just a slot receiver. So I'm like, I bought it. I'm like, yeah, we don't need it. We have Adam Thielen and then whatever.
But this is a little different because Justin Jefferson ran a 4.4. JSN ran a 4.5 something. Who knows though? I don't know for sure. I don't even know for sure. Just keep Flores for 2 to 3 years. Sorry defense next year. Yeah. I mean, if Flores if our defense sucks this year, Flores probably isn't getting grabbed as a head coach, so we might be able to get him for 1 more year.
He just has to make it better than it was last year, and that's
all he has to do. No, it's gonna be good. We're winning. It's Super Bowl season. It's Super Bowl season next year. Let's go.
Super Bowl. We're winning the World Series, going undefeated. Jamie's already called it. So
yep, absolutely. Just like last year, I was barely wrong. People were more surprised of how good we did, though. It was closer to my 17-0 than people's like 8 and.
Hey, and I got laughed at for the 13-4 projection by a bunch of people, and guess what? I was spot on with that one.
All right, number 3, Casey has Jordan Addison.
I like Jordan Addison a lot. I think he's going to be really good.
I think he's going to be. So I've already said it because we got. All right, well, we can wait actually, but and I got Jalen Hyatt number 3. I'll go into Jordan Addison when we get up to him. I got Jalen Hyatt number 3. I already said everything I like about him. But yeah, I really have him as my 3rd wide receiver. I think he's that good. But a lot of it, again, is when I make these top 5s, I am kind of looking at it from like, a player that we want across from Justin Jefferson. And Jalen Hyatt is the perfect type of wide receiver. In the perfect world, he comes in and he's that vertical threat he was in college, and everything is great. But
yeah, but I mean, just looking at Jordan Addison's stats, I mean, this last season, he must have been hurt or something. 59 receptions, 875 yards, and 8 touchdowns. But the season before, 100 receptions, 1593, and 17 touchdowns.
Yeah, here I'm gonna bring his stats up once we get to him. Yeah, I'll bring his stats up once we get because I want to let everyone know why. So JSN number 2, Casey already talked about him, and I have Zay Flowers number 2. So we'll just go to this. Zay Flowers, number 1, is Casey's number 1 wide receiver, and Jordan Addison is my number 1 wide receiver. So, Casey, will you want to tap in on Zay Flowers first?
You got Zay Flowers stats as well?
I'll
pull them both up. We can talk about them both.
All right.
I mean, obviously, Zay Flowers is that smaller, a little bit. I mean, obviously, quite a bit smaller guy, but if you want, I mean, just a guy that can do a little bit of everything to go along with Justin Jefferson, who can also do a little bit of everything. But like, I don't know, man. I think Zay Flowers has a really unique skill set, and I don't know. I think he would mesh pretty well.
So Zay Flowers here, 75.5 grade last year, 12 games played. He had 1,077 yards with 12 touchdowns,
Touchdown
reception
monster,
78,
man.
9 drops, receiving grade versus man coverage, contested catch rate. The big thing is, he's a spark plug. He's a guy that you can do end arounds. You can throw little short passes. He can take it to the house. He can beat people vertically. He's like a do it all type of wide receiver. I mean, if he was a little bit taller, you're seeing him. I don't think he's making it past it, maybe even the top 10. Like, that's how good it is. It really comes down to his height, I think.
Absolutely.
But that's what I really like about him. Jordan Addison, I think he's the smoothest route runner in the class, in my opinion. And, with a lot of these wide receivers, I do think, I think Jordan Addison is the most well-rounded player in the league, in the draft. He ended up running a 4.4 something. He isn't the fastest guy, but same with Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson came in. Justin Jefferson was looked at more of like a slot guy, but he was also looked at as not as fast. That kind of same thing with Jordan Addison. And both of them are fantastic route runners. And something that I see about Jordan Addison there's always players that I look at, especially with wide receivers, that there's just something different about them, that just something random. And with Jordan Addison, it's his balance. Like, when you look at his tape, there's something, it's so small, but there's something about his balance after he makes the catch that I think is just different than not just the players that I see in this draft, but even looking at the wide receivers in last drafts and a lot of these wide receivers, is you don't really see that type of balance. I don't really know exactly what that will mean for sure in his career, but it just seems like something you see out of him, out of any other wide receiver. And I can't really say that about any of these other players. So that's another reason why I really like him.
Sometimes I wish Delvin Cook had better balance.
A lot of times I wish he had better balance. But no, that's not just the only reason why. Let me bring up some stats here. Boom, right here. So Jordan Addison, and I like his game tape. I like everything like that. But you look at his stats, 81.5 last year. He played 11 games. He kind of had for him an off season, but 875 yards, 8 touchdowns. The year before, obviously 88.8 in 2021 with who he played for Pitt. Yeah, I believe he played for Pitt last year. Almost 1,600 yards, 17 touchdowns. Not to mention this year, only two drops this year. 82.4 receiving yards, 76.2 versus man coverage, which is actually one of the top grades that I've seen by any of these wide receivers. And then the contested catch rate's a little bit low, but I think he's the best wide receiver in this draft to me. And in my opinion, I think it's a decent jump, actually, even. So,
yeah.